Hello everyone, it's me Uncle John. Today I am going to read S666 Food Chain Frenzy, Chapter 3. No, I shouted. The last two things I saw before I covered my eyes were the rabbit's huge, razor-sharp front teeth. Crunch. I had a sinking feeling in my stomach as I waited to go down the hatch, but phew, those teeth missed us by a whisker. I heard Carlos say. He wasn't kidding either. When I opened my eyes, I saw that the magic school bus had gotten caught on one of the rabbit's whiskers. If you ask me, it was still way too close to the chomping mouth. Luckily for us, Miss Frizzle hit the gas and drove down off the whisker and into the fort. Soon we were perched between the rabbit's ears. We bounced all over the place as the rabbit hopped around, munching clover. Janet's science encyclopedia almost fell from her lap. It was hard to see out the windows through the rabbit's deep fur. Field trips at my school never get this hairy, Janet said. My teacher is neat and organized. Janet's teacher sounded a lot like Mr. O'Netley. Wow! Just then the bunny started to shake its head. With a jolt, we flew through the air and landed in the middle of the field. This field trip is crazy, Janet complained, rolling her eyes. How are we supposed to learn anything? We just keep flying around. Usually, I'm the one who complains about the freeze wild field trips. But I felt bad that Janet wasn't having a better time. At least we're finding out about food chains, I said. You said it, Arnold, the freeze called out. And right now, we happen to be looking at the second link of a food chain. Phoebe glanced out the bus windows and gasped. There was a grasshopper right next to us, jumping on some clover. You mean that grasshopper? She asked. Sure, said D.A. Grasshoppers eat plants, just like rabbits. So plants are the food makers of the food chain, and animals are the food eaters, said Ralphie. Insects are part of food chains, too. Absolutely. Now we are really sinking our teeth into the food chain facts, said Freeze. Miss Frizzle, Wanda said. What happens to the food energy in grass and clover after a grasshopper swallows them? According to my research, DA said, when an animal eats a plant, it absorbs the glucose and other carbohydrates stored in the plant. My research gives even more information. Janet spoke up. She pointed at a page in her science encyclopedia. It says here that the energy an animal eats stays stored inside the animal until it is used for things like growing, looking for food, and running away from other bigger animals. No wonder this grasshopper is chewing down so much. It has to make sure its supply of carbohydrate energy doesn't run out, said Carlos. Yes, said Janet. Definitely, said D.A. Janet and D.A. crossed their arms and stared at each other. Let me tell you, there was a ton of energy inside the bus right then. Competitive energy between D.A. and Janet, that is. Yeah, but D.A. gazed down at the half-eaten clover leaf that the grasshopper was nibbling. This insect doesn't absorb all the energy from a plant if it doesn't even eat the whole thing, does it? Right you are, D.A., said the Freeze. Plants use some of their carbohydrates to live, grow, make food, and reproduce, so on. Animal never gets all of a plant's energy. Plus, Jenny said, my book says that some of the energy gets left behind. It stays in the parts of a plant that aren't eaten. The rest of us looked back and forth at D.A. and Janet while they rattled off information from their books. I guess that's another reason this grasshopper and the rabbit are eating so much, Tim said. Herbivores have to eat lots of plants to get all the energy they need. So true. But when animals eat plants, they don't just get energy for themselves. They absorb energy that can become food for other animals too. Other animals? I said, okay, I'll admit it. When she said that, I was nervous. Can you blame me? Sure, said DA. Just take a look behind you, Arnold. I was almost too afraid to look. I slowly turned around and I didn't see a grasshopper anymore. I just saw a mouth. It was cleaning off its whiskers as it chewed on something. I could only guess what had happened to the grasshopper. Still, I was kind of relieved. It was a giant mouse, but it could have been worse. It could have been worse. The mouse is the third link in this food chain. I asked in disbelief. You got it, Arnold, the freeze said. Mice are omnivores. They can eat different kinds of food, including insects. I was still thinking about this when I heard Keisha. All bad, all bad. She said, I wonder what kinds of animals eat mice. I didn't like the sound of her voice. I whirled around and then I saw it, long and lean and scaly. A snake, I cried. It was huge and it was slithering straight toward the mouse and us. Its mouth was wide open. Chapter 4. I wasn't the only one who screamed. In fact, the freeze was the only one who didn't. She was grinning from ear to ear. Here comes the next link in our food chain. She said. She made it sound as if a parade was coming our way, not a snake on the prowl. Let's take a look. Take a look, shall we? It might end up being an inside. Look, this is too much, I said. The snake struck with lightning speed. Luckily for us, Miss Frizzle was even faster. She hit the gas, and the magic school bus made a flying leap away from the mouse. We landed safely on a blade of grass. Too bad the mouse wasn't as lucky. It disappeared into the snake's enormous mouth. You, Wanda said. Class, the snake is the fourth link in this food chain. Miss Frizzle explained. Clover, grasshopper, mouse, snake. That's not the end of the food chain either, DA told us. She pointed at a page in her book. Snake could be eaten by another animal, which could be hunted by another one. Some food chains have 5 or 6 links in them, or even more. Energy is passed from one link to the next along the way. Wow, said Carlos. So food chains really are a way to deliver the sun's energy to all living things. When the sun shines in, it powers life on the whole planet, Miss Frizzle agreed, including the fiercest animal hunters like bears and hawks. Those animals are at the top of the food chain, so they are the last creatures in the chain to get the carbohydrate energy that plants make. I know all that already, Janice said. She held up the menu of incredible edibles riddles. Shouldn't we answer the next riddle? One single food chain can tell the whole food story of an area. But this can't. It is made up many food chains that overlap and are connected. What is it? Huh? Phoebe said, how can food chains connect? I get the answer. I'm sure it's right here in my book. Books are a great way to learn. Miss Frizzle agreed. But there are other places to find answers too. Free's eyes twinkled like stars when she said that. The next thing we knew, Magic School Bus started changing again. We still looked like the Eat 'em Up cafe on the inside, but the outside of the bus got a lot longer and scalier. We are a snake, said Keisha. After seeing what the real snake had done to the mouse, I wasn't crazy about the bus turning into one, but no one else seemed to mind. Miss Frizzle hit the gas and we slithered through the grass toward the woods. Talk about wildlife. There are animals everywhere in that forest. Insects, mice, snakes, squirrel, birds, deer, foxes, even a bear. I was glad When the freeze steered the magic school snake beneath a big flat rock, we are almost totally protected. Only the very tip of our tail stuck out. Glad the animals in this forest ecosystem live together in a wonderful balance, Miss Frizzle explained. You call this wonderful? Said Carlos. It's a total feeding frenzy. Frenzy was right. Deer, squirrels, and grasshopper were eating grass and other plants. Woodpeckers, frogs, and skunks were catching insects like crazy. Foxes, raccoons, and snakes were chasing mice and frogs. A huge brown bear was splashing out of a stream with a fish in its paws. Wait a minute, said Tim. He pointed to some worms that were diving into the earth near our rock. Food chains show each animal eating just one kind of animal or plant. But I see birds and a raccoon eating those worms. And look at those snakes. Keisha pointed to a snake that slithered toward a frog at the edge of a pond. Second snake was nearby, hungrily eyeing a small rat. They are hunting different kinds of animals. Most animals are like people. They like more than just one kind of food. Miss Frizzle told us. That's why lots and lots of different food chains can exist in an ecosystem. Ecosystem can be big or small. Janet glanced up briefly from her book. Listen to this. It says here that food chains overlap. A single animal might eat lots of different animals or plants, she told us, and get eaten by different animals. Oh, brother, Janet was doing it again. She was so caught up in her reading that she hadn't noticed what the rest of us were watching outside. I see what you're talking about, Miss Frizzle said, nodding out the window. That's why a food chain doesn't tell the whole story, but a food web does. Food web does, announced DA. I think that's the answer to the third riddle. It says it right here in Janet's book. I looked over and I could tell DA had been reading the science book over Janet's shoulder. Janet stared at DA. That's not fair. I'm the one who found the page, Janet complained. I know, but when I saw food web, I thought it might solve a problem. I'm sorry, Janet. I believe that DA was sorry. I don't think she meant to take away Janet's answer, but Janet wasn't ready to forgive her. Ralphie grinned from beneath his baseball cap. DA is right. We have the third answer. Food web fit perfectly when I wrote it down on our menu. At least I tried to write the answers before I could. Janet took the menu from me. The answer to this riddle is food web, she said, grabbing my pencil too. I was the one who found it here in my book. She wrote it down, then looked triumphantly at DA. I just didn't yell it out. DA didn't say anything, not to Janet, anyway, but she did whisper something to me. You know, Arnold, if Janet bragged a little less, she might see more of what's going on. You know what? I was starting to wish this field trip would end. I didn't like being caught in the middle. Let's read the next riddle, okay? Janet looked like she wanted to say something else to DA, but instead she looked down at the menu. I peeked over her shoulder to read the riddle too. That riddle makes it sound like we are looking for something at the top of a food chain, right? Tim said, you know, something like a bear or a wolf or an eagle, a good hunter. I don't like the sound of that. I didn't want to think about the top hunters, even as the answer to a riddle. Top hunters, like bears, can be fierce, Miss Frizzle admitted. But there aren't very many top predators in the wild, not nearly as many as animals that are lower down on the food chain. Why not? It's all about energy, class, Miss Frizzle told us. Animals need energy. But there is less energy available toward the top of the food chain. In my book, it is pictured like a pyramid. The bottom level, which is the biggest one, has tons of plants, and then come the herbivores. There aren't quite as many of those. There are even few animals on the next level and the level after that. Once you get to the level with the top predator, there aren't very many animals at all. What does that have to do with the energy? Well, the sun's energy is passed up the pyramid when one level becomes food for the next, but the animals and plants and insects in each level use some of the energy before it gets passed on. So there is a lot of energy on the bottom level, but less and less toward the top. I think I get it. Since there isn't a lot of energy at the top of the food, there aren't a lot of animals at the top either. Was I ever relieved to hear that? Phew, I said, looking out the bus window. Not a bear or a wolf inside, but I did something else. A bright orange salamander that scampered across the forest floor, Medic School Snake began to slither toward it. That's when I realized that we were a hunter too. I couldn't bear to watch as we got closer to the little lizard. I could see the bus snake's long tongue slide in and out of its mouth, just as I thought it was going to strike. A piercing screech echoed through the air. Janet frowned. My teacher never lets loud noises interrupt our work. She said, I can't read with all that squawking. Tim looked out the windows and gulped. Miss Frizzle, he asked, are hawks top hunters? Miss Frizzle nodded. Hawks, eagles, and owls, some of the fiercest hunters on the planet. At that moment, the bus snake was yanked from the forest floor. We had to grab our seats to keep from falling to the back of the Eat 'em Up cafe. I looked out the window and saw the hawk. It had huge flapping wings and the pointiest, deadliest beak I had ever seen. The hawk's sharp claws clutched tightly around the Magic School Snake right behind its head. Oh, great, I groaned. One of those fierce hunters just napped us. I looked down at the ground and saw the little salamander run away.